Hello, welcome to tonight's lighting feedback. Today we have Sylvain with an update. So this is the update and this is the previous version. Pretty big difference, huh? And then this is the reference. And then this was just my diffused example from before. We can not pay attention to that. So let's compare the current to the previous, and awesome. Like, I'm seeing a good notes on, darkening the shadows to match the reference, and then also like this harsh shadow that we were saying. It definitely has that more diffuse, soft feel, and I'm seeing especially actually like look at the background. It's got this nice like atmo now going on. So, and then you lifted this too. So even though it's still dark, right? I'm seeing that hint of color in green. Boy, this one just looked like maybe a shader was broken, honestly, to me. Really good. Let me just take a look, and then, so this will become more evident when I put it against the reference of the value of the dark, and why we were saying to go a little bit darker and more saturated also in the shadows. And I think, it's definitely, you've got it down here, especially compared to the initial version. So great job on that. The one thing, and I like the diffusion too, so it definitely matches closer. I only have one comment now, and I think you have leeway, especially looking at this reference here. You see how, I don't think you should go as far as this, but you see how like this one up here has a darker vignetting, almost like in the foreground here, and it does get darker here and here, and like even up here, like you can see it's subtle vignetting. So I think you have the leeway to do it like right around here. I don't think I'm gonna be able to draw on this one. So if like, and I mean like a darkening vignetting. Oh, I'm on eraser. Ha. Like a darkening vignetting here, right? So it'll give it a little bit more depth, a little bit more shaping as it goes closer to the foreground. And you can kind of reference this. I wouldn't go as dark as this, really, but just like subtle. Like even this one, you can tell there's like, it gets a little bit darker here, right? Gets a little bit darker here, even here, So like, look at these as examples. Like this is all like nice vignetting going on. So I think if you apply that right here, it'll just, hone it in, really draw your eye away from this too, and to that, and just add more depth. So awesome job. I really like it, and I think it's a huge difference between your latest and your previous. It just has so much more richness and that softness and the glow. So really well done there. Next up, we've got another cabin. And I pulled up, since it's my first time looking at it, I pulled up the previous version and the latest version. I see the difference between the two, and this is why it's helpful to see the previous version, because I was not the feedback person for this, that you added so much more life in this foreground. It seems like there's the water here is having like the sky reflected on it. I'm definitely feeling it, like it's more in the environment. From here, definitely like this, it's missing that, right? It was missing the sky. So really great job on that. Now let's look at the lighting. So I'm looking at this one, and I pulled up the reference that you had with it. So let's take a look. Overall, I think, the base of it is there. The big thing that I'm seeing, especially between your reference, well, there's a couple things. The first thing is, I feel like your reference is definitely kind of like more stylized, more saturated in the color palette, where this is more desaturated. I don't know if that was intentional, but that's something to note. But although I will say this is like super stylized, like super kind of pushed in the saturation, so I'm okay if, you know, you just decide you didn't want to go this far. But if you are matching like 1-to-1, look at the saturation levels. The other thing I'll say is this one has a very distinct key light and it's backlit, right? And it's coming from this way. You'll see the shadow. The snow gets pretty bright. That's pretty blown out, actually. I wouldn't go that far, but the big thing is there's this distinct key light. There's a mood here, where here I am not really seeing a key light happening. So I guess that would be my question to you, is like, where is the key light? Where is this dramatic, if this is your reference? What is going on, right? So I would introduce, and I think it would just create more interest too, because honestly, like looking at this, I think in general, like it's got a good base, but it's not like, I'm not sure where to look. I'm just kind of looking at this like, okay, it feels like a scene, but there's nothing drawing my eye. I guess the house is kind of drawing my eye, but that's just because it's the object in the scene. But you really want to like draw some interest. So I would choose a key light. Like, and I do like this idea of being backlit, because I feel like, especially with this, I'd be curious, because I see a lot of like frontal lit versions of this cabin. But how cool it would be, like, I don't know, maybe like a backlight coming from like this direction over here. Or maybe this direction. I'm not sure, right? Play with it. Like in this reference, it's coming from this screen right side. So it kind of be like, kind of hitting here. That could be interesting, and having this like dramatic shadow really be hitting here. But that would be hard to achieve just because, I mean, it wouldn't be too hard, but this mountain feels a little too close for that to be more realistic. But maybe like cheat it a little bit that way, or you can go the other direction. You can, you know, have it coming here. But I think it'd be really interesting to pursue a key light that's a little bit back rimmy instead of just the key light that's straight on. So I would start experimenting with that. Have fun with it. Keep your reference up. And yeah, I can't wait to see the updates on this. Good job, by the way. And yeah. And next up, we've got Holly. So Holly, you're doing a good job of like troubleshooting, and like also I did see your notes where, you know, Discord said that it was questionable content, so I think that's interesting for those watching. Questionable, apparently Discord has a thing, if it's questionable content, they won't allow you to post it. So apparently the sword here, and we could see in the previous version, the sword here and her are now considered like questionable content, which, you know, it's AI doing its thing. So interesting to note there. Okay, so let's keep on going here. I think, you know, great job on the depth and the value in the back compared to before, right? We're definitely feeling that. I think you did a really good job there. And even here, like, this is a vast difference between like this one, let's say, right? If I were to compare, like already we're getting more shaping on this. Great call out on reducing, you know, that saturation. This is definitely more of a color that feels more natural, and I see it looks like you either adjusted or worked on maybe the material as well, because it's feeling way more metallic overall. So great job on that. Let's now focus on one. I will say I like where this is going. I feel like, let's leave it for now. One thing, like, we can't keep it this dark, I think, but I think as we start adding some fill, some more environment lighting, it will kind of fill itself in naturally. Because we're looking, I'm not seeing any it won't get as dark as that, as we're seeing now here, because it is in daylight. It'll just be lifted a little, but don't do anything yet. The one thing, let's start looking at the fills and the bounces. So when I say fill and bounce, so like let's say this is the key here, and I still feel like honestly it's a little strong. We can even go down a little on that, but let's start filling her in, because again, if you look at your reference, there's a nice balance here, right? There's no, it's not like super contrasty where it's like all one light and then just goes to dark. So right now that's what we're having here. So let's bring that balance in. So let's say, you know, you have the fill coming in here. You have the key coming in here. Now let's talk about the fill. So let's bring in a nice kind of soft fill here, and also a bounce like right here. And the bounce light is what, think of like the floor color, right? The ground is bouncing up, and unless she's like on a black dark ground, it would never go, like there would be some light bouncing. Because think about rays, right? It's like a light goes here, then it, like that's the floor, bounces back up. So it takes some of this property and bounces back up. So just think about it there, like that would get lighter, would get more shaping in there. I'd also curious about this shader on her, the skin shader. Skin shaders are so tricky, I will say. And also, like for this kind of skin shading, specularity is such a key thing for like the depth of adding that shaping. But this feels like super matte for some reason. So I'm curious if the shader itself doesn't have any like specular properties to it or whatnot. So again, like I said, as we were troubleshooting, you know, this robot before, it's a balance between, like, it's such a difference already, right? I don't have the other version up, but there's other version where this robot was completely black and dark and not catching any color until we looked into the materials, and then it's like, okay, now it's catching color, and now look at it, it's so much better, so much more shaping. So I think, you know, what a lesson here to be learned is it's not all lighting, it's all the elements, it's how it's modeled, it's how it's shaded, it's the materials. So you want to look at this and not and troubleshoot, and it's like creative problem solving. It's like, okay, and that's where honestly it is awesome to kind of have a good habit of checking this off before you get into lighting, and that's why it will save you time. So for example, it's like you check the model, you look at the model, you make sure it's good, the right angles, whatnot. Materials, you do a separate materials turntable to make sure all the materials are working properly in neutral lighting. And then when that's all ready, you're ready to light. And you know that when you set up your lighting, everything will work cohesively together, and you won't have to like go back and forth and wonder like, wait, is it the lighting, is it the shaders? So that's just a good, you know, workflow that to consider. So let's do that. So work on the fill levels. This, I will say, I'd watch out. This is blowing out. This is blowing out here. And this is where it gets tricky because the camera does move essentially in a couple directions here. But that's something that, you know, as a lighter, we always work around, and one of the great challenges of being a lighter. But I would focus on this shot right here, honestly, to get her in a really good place. And then let's take it from there. But awesome job already. Such a big improvement. Like it might feel like it's slow. I don't know if it does to you. It's actually been pretty fast with the iterations. So awesome job on that. But like you can see with every progression, we're getting there. So amazing. Keep it going. And again, everyone, great job. I can't wait to see this. This is essentially like a ship with a fix, which means like approved with a fix, a small fix. And yeah, this shot, I just can't wait to see, you know, let's add that drama. Let's add that key light in there. Okay, everyone, I think that's it. We've got 3 awesome submissions. Keep it coming. And in the meantime, happy lighting.